Hello, Dr. Kocher, and any fellow classmate viewing this. My name is Zachary Hoppock, and for a review of COMPSCI 1 of specific topics, I would like to demonstrate the concept of input validation, pardon me. Specifically, if I remember correctly, discussed in chapters 3 and 4 in small sections. In programming, a decent working program requires such things as if-else statements, loops, function arrays, etc., stuff we'll probably learn in this course. And if you want a decent user-friendly interface, you want the user to be able to input decisions or values. Take this program for example. I'm going to bring it up right now. As you see, we got this first line right here, int num. We initialize the variable num as an integer, and then we're posed with the question, enter a number that is not 11. And then right after it, we have sin dash num. This is where we input a number, an integer specifically. And then we are met with a if-else statement. If num is equal to 11, we're told we were not asked to enter 11, and it says goodbye and returns 0, which ends the program normally. And in the else statement, if we enter in anything other than 11, we get with you entered the number we put in, and goodbye, and the program exits normally. Let's test it, shall we? Enter in a number that's not 11. Let's start with 2. You entered 2. Goodbye. The program exits normally. And let's try a number above 11. 15. You entered 15. Goodbye. Okay, simple as that. Now what happens if we enter 11? You were asked not to enter 11. Goodbye. Simple as that, right? What happens if I type in the following, which is not an integer? If I type in anything other than an integer value, well, specifically in this case, a string value, you entered 0. It will not recognize the string value because the variable is set up as an integer. It'll automatically set to 0, and it'll go through the second if statement, but technically we hit an error in the system, a runtime error, a user error for entering a string in that. Now, if we want to get a different message, if we want to check if what we entered in is not the correct data type, we will enter in the following code, which I will plug into this empty space right here. Else if sin fail. If what we input is non-integer, it'll check it, and if it's non-integer, it'll go through here and say you did not enter an integer. Goodbye, and you return 1. 1 being that we exit the program because with an error. The zeros mean we exited the program normally, the main function specifically. And return 1 means we exit it, but we had an error. You'll see here. Let me run it again. Enter the numbers not 11. Let's try that 2 again. You did not enter an integer. Goodbye. Exit status 1. See, it tells you hit an error. And what you might ask, what we do, like, can we try again? I would say yes. Let me open a different window. We have a similar situation right here. Int num initializes variable num as an integer. You're asked the same question and enter the same, have the same input line. But this time, I only have it set up to recognize if the number you input is either greater than 11 or less than 11. You'll see right now. Enter a number that's not 11. 2. You entered 2. Goodbye. And now let's try 17. You entered 17. Goodbye. What happens when I type in 11? Nothing. It just ends the program. And finally, let's test that string value again. You entered 0. Goodbye. Once again, it doesn't recognize string value. It sets the num as 0 and doesn't do it correctly. How do we get it so that way we're always make sure that we input an integer and an integer that is not 11? Let me bring up this code snippet right here. We have here a do while loop, which I am going to replace with these two lines. So we do all this inside here before we hit the while loop. We enter, we're asked the question. We enter in a num, a value. If the value is non-integer, we go through this statement where it clears the fail state because we failed it being an integer. It reads the item that we input as a string and inputs that as a string and discards the item. And then it resets the value of num to 11. Why 11? Because the question is not 11. And the while loop down here will keep going through this do while as long as num equals 11, which is why I don't have an if else statement down here. I'll show you. Let's do it normally. Let's type in 2. It bypasses that as normal and goes down here and ends the program normally. Again, 15 enters it normally. What happens if I type in 11 here? Since the while loop will keep going, if we keep typing 11, it'll keep asking us the same question multiple times until we type in anything else. And what happens if I type in that string value? It asks you the question again. It goes through all these steps to make sure and resets it as 11, making you type in another answer to this question. Let's actually type the number 2. There we go. We've completed the program correctly now. Now that it's asked us to do it again and make sure that we type in a correct value that is neither a string value or 11. I want to show one more thing from a project that I did with some fellow classmates last semester. This code is presented by Cassandra, and we're all team members in here. You'll see my name right here. This program was supposed to be an RPG battle, and I took part in a specific portion of this and making sure that we have input validation. You'll see our main character here has a list of options to choose from. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 options. You're supposed to enter 1, 2, 3, or 4. In the code right here in our functions area, we put it in a function which brings in the list of choices. In this case, we have 4 choices, and we type in one of those 4 choices. If we type in anything that is not an integer, it'll go through the sin fail and set invalid option, try again, and then it'll reset it. I'll show you right now. Let's type 2. Input valid option, try again. Takes us back to the first screen. And we have an extra thing where, because we brought in choices as a parameter, if we type in anything that's less than the amount of choices or more than the amount of choices, for example, 5, it'll do input invalid option, try again. And until you type in anything that's not, until you type in 1 to 4 as an integer, it'll keep doing that over and over again. And we have a second screen right here that does the same thing, but you have 2 choices. And if you type in more than 2 or less than 1 or a string, it'll do invalid option, try again, and take you back to the first screen for making you start all the way over until you get it right. And that helped prevent errors in your programming, because if I didn't have this error check, the program will literally loop forever until you stop it yourself. I hope you enjoy my presentation on input validation, and I look forward to hearing what all of you say and look forward to working with you the rest of the semester. Thank you.